Hello and welcome to the Black Soldier Fly Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, David Taverner, and in this series we dig beneath the surface to uncover what's really happening inside the Black Soldier Fly industry. Hello, this is the Black Soldier Fly Leaders Podcast, and this week I have with me a fellow Dave. It's Dave Littere, Washington, D.C., I believe, has a company called Future Acres Urban Farming and has been operating for, well, we'll find out, but it's a smallish scale setup. And what I want to showcase from this episode is all of the challenges of small scale black soldier fly farming, but also how to make it work. Now, Dave, let's see if you've got the answers. But before we go into that, all of the first question I ask all of my guests is, how did you get to black soldier flies?
Great question. So in the business journey, we are primarily a compost company, right? Like we're a food collection / composting company in the nation's capital. So we're trying to build that as a service, right? When we first started collecting food waste, we actually, there's one real compost dump site that everybody dumps to, right? If you're a hauler, you go to this site if you're in my region. Our first real year collecting, we weren't doing much. We had to go to that dump site and keep the business moving. About halfway through the year, this is 2022, we were asked by the management of the dump site, hey, do you have like an estimate for like the rest of the year, how much food waste you're going to be bringing? I'm like, we're really just starting. I don't have an estimate, doing really small scale right now. And the reason that they were asking for an estimate was because they were anticipating being full by the end of the year. So this one large, great operation doing good work, they were almost full. So with my scale that I wanted to get to, I knew that there had to be, I needed to come up with another option for, small scale composting to alleviate some of that pressure. And then it just, it always leads back to black soldier flies. So as a composting model, we ended up going with the black soldier fly setup, and we were able to, reduce some of the pressure that they were having on some of their, especially with our company. We're doing a lot of our own composting, so we don't have to rely.
So you were already doing composting, but
Yes.
Where did you hear about black soldier flies?
Just in my research of how to compost. We're in a very urban environment, so we don't have a lot of land. I don't have a lot of money. It's so like, what's a good, small scale solution that I can afford that is promising, right, and could actually alleviate some of the pressure on the dump site. So I just ended up researching enough and found black soldier flies and saw how fast it can be done and the efficiency. And I also saw that this was 2022, that I saw how effective it was across the world. There's I can't really think of more than a handful of companies doing what I'm doing in America with black soldier flies, but I knew that some African countries like Indonesia, even some companies in Europe that were doing it very effectively, small scale. So I wanted to try my hand at that.
Yeah, I remember my start of my journey and learning everything from YouTube. Some guys in Indonesia, I think, like you said, and there was someone in Kenya. And then it's just Googling and things like that. Exactly. Is that exactly what you did?
Is exactly it. Yeah, I watched a lot of videos. I looked up. I have a biology degree from college, and I'm finally using it 15 years later. No, it's that's exactly how. Just the research train. It seems like it always leads back to black soldier flies. Like
okay.
Was So black soldier flies all the way.
So how did you actually get into composting then in the first place? You said you did a biology degree, but that was 10, 15 years ago. What happened in between? So
I started the business in 2020 doing climate controlled agriculture, actually. So I was growing like, indoor microgreens and sprouts and all that. So I had a sense of how this whole black soldier fly composting system worked because I had the short background of climate controlled agriculture. Because like growing stuff in a container or in an enclosed environment, you need to control the environment for plants to grow, right?
So this is essentially vertical farming in its kind of colloquial terms.
It's vertical farming for insect hospitality. That's what I refer to it as.
insect hotels in vertical.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. But and to try and dig into your motivations and goals other than academic biology, how come you've got into this space?
With our transition from climate controlled agriculture to composting, I mainly started collecting food waste so I can make my own compost for my plants and for my sprouts and all that. That was the main motivation for doing food waste at all. And then we got a lot of traction with food waste collection, a lot of interest. We won some contracts as well, so we just went full scale composting, and with that came the necessity for increasing our processing capability, or else we would have to rely on the one dump site. So yeah, we transitioned from climate controlled agriculture to climate controlled composting.
I love these stories and how entrepreneurs kind of go down different paths. And, you're a very humble composter who stumbled upon black soldier flies. And so then you go, right, this is something I want to pursue and go for it. And, I've been asked questions by people who are ignorant based on the fact that they haven't heard of black soldier flies before, and they say, "Well, why would you add this complexity to the process? Well, it's just composting, right?" And I kind of answer saying, "Yeah, it is, but it's better, it's quicker, less emissions, more nutrition in the output, right?" But if I looked at your website, you're talking all about composting and no bioconversion or protein or any of this kind of stuff, which everyone else is. Why are you going down that route? Why are you calling it composting? I'm really intrigued about that.
So the full circle story that this whole system paints it's just to me it's been more easily marketable to people. You tell people that you're taking rotten food and leftovers and you're turning it into not only a valuable soil amendment, which rebuilds the soil from the biological level, you're also turning it into protein and fat and the livestock feed that everybody's pursuing. It's a nice full circle story, and we have rapid results. As everybody knows, it's a very quick process. So when you tell people that we fill up our container and we can get rid of 4 tons of food waste in 10 days, they're very intrigued. The full circle story is what we're really pursuing. The green model that this offers is unlike any other. It's not solar. It's not energy generation with minute efficiency improvements. It is a tried and true composting model. You're breaking down organic waste and you're getting valuable outputs out of it. Now, I don't focus so much on it's when you're talking about producing just for high quality products like protein, like you're extracting the protein, you're extracting the fat, like a lot of companies do. It's a big capex, and that is something I can't afford, but it's also not really in our model to pursue that route.
Well,
So because when we collect, like, we're getting paid for the service of collecting food waste, right? So
okay.
that's a huge revenue generator for us. And this is more of the black soldier fly composting is more of it's not an afterthought because it's taken over my life completely, but it's more, I'm able to make products out of the stuff I collect. I'm not just dumping it and letting somebody else make the product. I am keeping everything in house. There's no compost site in Fairfax County, Virginia. We're one of the richest counties in the nation, and there's so much housing and with zoning and all that, there's no room really for a compost site. So we anticipate the scale to increase exponentially when DC starts composting mandatory, like when they start having mandatory food waste collection. All of the counties in Virginia that are super wealthy, and we see that it's going to take over that as well. And with the black soldier fly model, it's so scalable that we're using this as a continuation of our food waste collection service.
So
So that's
what is happening to that food waste in Fairfax County?
so we're collecting it from farmers markets, from residents, from some businesses. We're starting to get into some schools as well. And instead of us going cross county lines about 40 minutes away and dumping it, we are keeping everything in house. We're reducing transportation costs.
Is that what's happening already at the moment? So let's say Future Acres farming does not exist. What's happening to that food waste? So they're just taking it over the county line 40 miles
Yeah,
away and
yeah,
dumping it
yeah.
into landfill.
Yes, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I would be dumping it at the county or the next county over their compost site. Yes. So I'm
Because they just
offering,
don't have composting. Wow. I just didn't
well,
think that would exist in
so
the.
we have millions of people in this county, right? It's a big area. It is, including all of Northern Virginia. There's probably 10 million people, and that's just surrounding DC, right? So the accessibility of compost sites is a niche that we thought we could fill with this black soldier fly composting model. So we are, as we grow our collection of food waste, we're going to scale our black soldier fly system because we're doing it in the. We'll talk about this soon, probably, but we're pursuing the container model where we have smaller units, basic composting units. I call them the mobile compost commands. That's what I call them. But it's basically modular black soldier fly composting systems that can increase in scale as either businesses or counties grow their food waste processing abilities.
What did you say there, Dave? You call them the normal composting commands or
The
something?
mobile composting.
Mobile. Just yeah. What are they exactly?
So mobile, it's in a shipping container. If somebody doesn't like it, if I'm in somebody's backyard, which I'm not, but if somebody wants it in their backyard and they're like, oh, I don't want it here anymore, we can move it, right? Compost, it's a key word that is used a lot here. And then command, I have my mascot is a soldier fly wearing military garb.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
So it's like the soldier fly theme. Like I'm
Mhm.
playing on mobile compost command it's like a pseudo military term. So
Yeah.
I just like to play on the.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Okay, so we've talked about the input of the food waste. Let's talk about your process then. So you've got a shipping container. Do you do any sort of pre-processing of the food waste before it goes and gets fed to the larvae?
Yes. So we're still relatively small, like we're micro hauling, you could say. So we have everything in. All of our food waste comes in 32-gallon bins, right? So we collect it from farmers markets in rolling garbage bins.
Mhm.
We take the bin and we tip it into a shredder, which shreds the food to a good particle size, and then we just fill up the trays at the bottom of the shredder there.
And that's for each mobile composting command that has a shredder.
Yeah, I would like to centralize the shredding a little more, and then decentralize the actual process of breaking down the food waste.
So you've got your farmers markets, your schools, your hospitals, wherever you're getting your food waste from. That goes to the centralized shredding unit, the feed processing unit, to then send out to all of your MCCs, mobile
Yes,
composting.
exactly. Yeah. So the mobile compost command will be just the rearing unit where the black soldier flies eat and
Yeah.
turn the food waste into gold.
And so then I assume that works because all of the food waste is pretty nearby anyway, but kind of segregated in terms of location from school to
Yeah,
school.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what we're expanding the footprint of the actual compost sites that we're making. So we're going to grow more containers. We actually won a grant through our state, the state of Virginia.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we're going to be building out 2 more. And that's, and we're going to be partnering with the county to do it. Fairfax County is now going to have 3 mobile compost commands that we're going to be able to service. I do want to keep the shredding central because it'd be, it's heavy machinery at the end of the day. And I don't want, too many shredders all over the place. And I'd like to keep that central, but then we would distribute the food waste accordingly based on the cycle of each compost.
Okay, and where do you get your insect stock from? Do you breed it yourself?
We don't breed yet. We get it from South Africa. We get biweekly supply, so they're pretty reliable.
Air freighted over, I assume.
Yeah. And what I've found about this whole industry, everybody, not everybody. There's a lot of specialized companies, right? There's companies making the breeding lights, the correct spectrums. There's companies making there's companies just focused on frass production. There's companies focused on just egg production, right? Like neonate supply. And that makes it really nice to tap into these existing networks of businesses who've already specialized in things that I don't have to specialize in because I'm kind of doing a lot of, I'm doing like 3/4 of the work, just not breeding, right? So, and I'm trying to do it all in one spot, which is, it's challenging, but having the network of existing businesses really help.
Yeah, I found I gave breeding a shot, but I found it technically challenging, and I didn't consider myself to have the skill set for it. I could have developed it perhaps, but like you said, it's much better to tap into people who have already done it. So perhaps, if I scale in the future, then I could add it to my repertoire, or I'm perfectly happy for other people to do it in the country as long as they give me a good product, a good price, and we have a good relationship. That's the important thing. I think, as the black soldier fly industry develops, and then that will be the case where we have specialization, as
Yeah.
you said.
Now I plan on breeding in the future. I would like more of my rear end units, the mobile compost commands. I'd like more of those set up to
Hmm.
justify me jumping into the breeding game, because I know it's going to be a challenge.
Yes. Yeah. Fair enough. And so, what are the locations that you've got your composting controls on? Who are the people who are operating them?
Where are they located?
Yes.
So the one that I have set up basically as a showcase, proof of concept, that's the one I've been running for about a year now. That one is in the back kind of floodplain of a plant nursery. I just
Okay.
ended up partnering with this plant nursery, and they're all into what I'm doing. They love it. I give them frass to sell. It's not really usable land. They can't store stuff there. They can park some vehicles back there, but they're not doing a lot with it. So if I offered, hey, I'll pay rent, I'll give you free, free stuff. And so they were very, they're happy to oblige. The two that we're building out, we're trying to either put them in parks, like county parks, or closer to things like schools and hospitals. And we're exploring options. And because I'm partnering with the county, it's not the fastest thing to just jump into a partnership with the county, but we're exploring different options. But I think it's primarily going to be in like an unused parking lot. That this park authority runs a bunch of community centers and parks and golf courses, and there's a lot of unused parking space. So I'm offering that as a site location, and they're happy to consider that.
Okay. You've talked a bit about the frass, selling it or giving it to one of your location landlords, I suppose. How are you packaging it, selling it? How are you making money on the frass? And we'll come on to the insects in a sec.
So I'm not a salesman.
You're an operator.
I can run the service based part of the business pretty well. I'm in no position to have a good sales pitch for a product. I go to as many plant nurseries, landscapers, like private businesses as much as I can, and try to sell the frass. I'm trying to tap into a larger network of farmers who would be willing to take the live larvae off my hands, for the poultry operations. I'm also, because I'm partnered with the county already, we're gonna explore some golf course maintenance options where I give them a certain amount free of charge, and then I'd like to explore how they can potentially reduce the pesticide and all the sprays, all the chemical sprays, and replace that with frass. So we're going to run little trials, not really scientifically proven, but it's the concept is there, and they're willing to run those trials. We're going to partner with the golf courses. We're going to partner with the farmers markets that we're collecting food waste from. We're going to give it back to the customers as well. So we're gonna set aside a certain amount and give it back to the customers who drop off food waste. Right. So that'll at least expand the education where people can see tangibly what their food waste is being turned into and how we're doing.
Dave, you just said you're not a salesman, and you've talked about all of these different partnerships you're getting into. I think you've got it in your blood, man. It sounds like you're a much better salesman than me. I get one rejection, one no from anyone, and I cower into my little hole.
I'm like that too, trust me.
Yeah. Great. Insects then, the actual larvae themselves. You're feeding all of these food waste from schools. It's all mixed. It's from farmers markets, all of this kind of stuff. Who wants your larvae when it's been fed that? Tell me. Or what are you doing?
Right now, almost no one. No. There's the farmers that we sit next to at the farmers markets. They love the idea. A bunch of them have tried them. It's just they're not. The farmers at farmers markets are mainly there for produce. The majority of the farmers there are growing produce. Right? They probably don't have a large poultry operation. Some of them sell eggs.
Sorry, they're selling the fruit and veg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they might be interested in your frass then.
They might be. There's some of their systems are so large, and I've actually seen this as well with poultry. Whether it's the farming produce, farming poultry, some of their operations are so large that they don't really want to risk a new input, right? So if they have their proven methods and everything's working well with their current chicken feed, for example, some of
Mm.
them really don't want to, take a risk. Basically, it is a risk for them to try to offset some of the chicken feed that they feed the poultry currently and replace it with soldier flies. So it is a lot of education, a lot of, I got to be some salesy, I got to sell it in a better light. There's been a lot of small scale poultry, like backyard chicken farmers and things like that, that have been interesting.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So actually, we talk about a black soldier fly farm, but as is the case with a lot of farms, actually, sometimes the insects themselves become the burden. What do you do with the tonnage of insects that you get out then?
So we are we're producing by demand. We're not scaling up the actual production of the larva until we have a customer, right? Until we have like set customers that can take it off our hands. We don't have drying mechanisms yet. Like we don't have efficient drying mechanisms yet. I'm going to buy a drum roller soon to take on some of the larger quantities that we're going to be making this summer. And then we'll have the dried insects for sale, which will be another market we can tap into, like pet stores and, wild bird stores. There's a lot of those around here. We will get into that. We just haven't yet. We're just trying to get rid of as much live larvae as we can because it's less processing time and
Yeah,
energy.
you just said like you produce on demand, but you've got two products, right? And it sounds like the frass you've from what you said, you've got a lot more demand for the frass, or you develop more demand for the frass. So you still produce those black soldier flies.
Yeah, yeah, we do. We get rid of them. I mean, we're trying to, we're offering them for free, just as to try. We're
Okay.
doing as much as we can to offload them to before they before they start to turn into flies. So we're just doing as much as we can. We're just getting rid of as much as possible right now.
Yeah.
We just
Okay. Okay.
like established sales.
It's from my experience, the demand side of it, the sales, which you said you've not a very good salesman, but I don't know, I think you might be. And from my experience, it's the demand which is really the sticking point, the main challenge to establish demand, especially this small scale people. What are your other challenges you're finding?
I'd say the biggest one is because we're doing post consumer food waste. We don't have a steady feedstock for the larva,
Yeah.
meaning, each tray is different almost. There's some congruity there, but there's a lot of moisture content, for example, is a huge one for us. That like melons in the spring or melons in the early summer, and then like squash and pumpkins, things like that, where like seasonality of the food
Mm.
waste we're getting can really hinder us. And my again, small scale solution is just I'm mixing in a dry chicken feed or a dry breadcrumbs or something to control the moisture in the tray. And
Yes. Yes.
so I've
And I guess that's where if you had a centralized feeding operation or feed preparation operation, then you can get all of these different, even seasonal feedstocks in, and then you can manage it centrally there. You could even go as far to getting like moisture measuring equipment and things like that
yeah,
to test all of your batches. So that's kind of the first step. But like so you would recommend as your dry, well, not as your dry ingredient, but using a mixture of drying ingredients
yeah,
in your early stages to manage that, because there's a lot of listeners on here who are in those early stages, and they need to learn these lessons to make it work for them.
yeah, definitely. So for we're exploring a bunch of like we've tried biochar, which is
Mm.
very moisture controlling. It's just very expensive. Plus the larvae
Do the insects actually eat the biochar?
they don't. So
Right.
it does affect your end product of frass. Frass mixed with biochar, right?
Which is great, right?
It is great. That's just a whole nother like biochar is another industry where you have to educate people so much on it for them to be sold on it. So
Yes.
it's just another it's a whole nother topic that you would need to account for. But we're again sticking with the food waste model that we're pursuing. It would make sense to, and it's been challenging, believe it or not, to partner with franchises that make their own bread every single day, or they throw out the pastries at the end of the day, no matter what. And a lot of these franchises, even if I offered free collection, which has happened, they don't even want me to take their bread, right?
Why?
franchises are owned independently here. So, like Subway, for example, there's like 3 Subways around me, and they throw out the bread every single day.
Oh, I see. It's some sort of corporate fear that they're going to
It's
get
something.
told
Yeah,
off or
and I
something.
can't. I don't know if I'm. I don't know how to tap into the corporate franchise models to be like, hey, I'm here in your area. I can do this many restaurants, but I think a baked bread product would be an excellent moisture control mechanism, and it would be free. I'm paying for the chicken feed or whatever else I'm using. I'm paying for it now, so I'd rather do it for no or low cost because scaling up is going to determine it. The moisture control is definitely going to determine how you can scale.
I'm just trying to picture you, Dave, rummaging around in the bins of Subway
You
at
know,
4 p.m. at night. This. I assume you look like a kind of big guy, tall guy with a huge beard, rummaging around the bins of Subway.
I thought about it. I thought about doing it.
Oh, it's a great image. Great image.
Yeah, but like there's like bagels, like these companies that make bagels, and like I watch them do it. I've collected a few times from like Subway and from other like bagel companies. It's like that is a perfect moisture control mechanism that I could be using, and it's no cost to them, no cost to me. It's just just driving. Everything's so close. It takes me 5 minutes to go pick it up. It's just definitely challenging to tap into that corporate franchise world of food waste collection.
And just around the collection of food waste, because this is like real hustle, isn't it? Going around, do you go every day to all of these different producers of the food waste and pick up?
So we're under contract for the farmers markets, and then we also have our own residential route, and that takes up a lot of our time. But that's a huge. We don't have it's me, my brother. I have one other full time person, and then a bunch of part time people. They're just they're caught up doing their thing. It's up to me to go to these places every day. I do a lot of emails. I do a lot of outreach calls, cold calls. I can't really go to these restaurants. The managers or the owners aren't usually there during normal business hours. So yeah, I do what I can when I have the time to, but a lot of the time is definitely processing for the larva. It does take a
Yes.
lot more time.
Yes, I can only imagine. Now, keeping on the topic of challenges, what about regulations? How is that helping or hindering your operation?
So because we are doing post-consumer food waste and we're not doing the more traditional factory model that these big companies are doing, I want to say it's challenging to. I'm in contact with the regulators for the state of Virginia with like the agriculture department. So we do. I go back and forth with them on different things about frass, different things about live larvae, about dry larvae, and a lot of their, it's a relatively new product, so they're kind of going based off of old models like mealworms, right? They kind of just attach it to a mealworm regulation or a worm farming operation or something like that.
Hmm.
So to get like the operation itself, the composting unit, I'm getting permitted through the state environmental quality department, but it's they've never seen it, right? So like bringing them out and showing them is huge. But the product itself, they're definitely willing to work with me, and um, they're it's encouraging that they're trying to help, but it is just a time it's a time commitment, and trying to make sure that we meet their standards and their labeling requirements and things like that. So post consumer food waste, it is in the U.S. standards. I don't think it's considered like animal feed or feed grade or whatever their term is. So we have to. It's basically a workaround, right? We're not feeding livestock animals food waste. We're feeding them larvae, but the larvae will raise on food waste. So it's kind of there's definitely a bio filter there, but it's just explaining everything that the soldier fly producers already know. Explaining that to somebody who does regulation and has never heard of it, that is a challenge.
Okay. So it's a few grey areas, but that there's allowances for doing what you're doing, and importantly, regulators are sound positive towards it and encouraging. Because I
Yes.
guess when you explain what you're doing in terms of your composting and your adding circularity to the city and to the
Mhm.
urban areas, then that it just makes sense and it works. Dave, you mentioned that you don't know too many people doing this. How are you learning and keeping up to date with the industry? Who do you talk to? Do you have mentors or anything like that?
So yeah, the specific niche we're trying to fill, there's not a lot of people I've connected with. I'm sure they're out there. Reach out to me if you see this episode. But the specific niche of like composting food waste is tough because the you know education, my YouTube education, my research papers I've been reading, they're all companies that like across the world. Yeah, it's a like I said, it's a niche that people are filling, and it's great. Doesn't seem like it's up to standard where it's not a franchisable model, right? It's not something you can just go start doing and have a set procedure list and materials handling, and it's a lot of moving parts. So um again, yeah, I'm relatively new, but I don't know a lot of companies in the US doing this. I like to help bounce ideas off of and compare regulations and things like that. But I know there's Canadian companies, there's European companies, there's a bunch of African companies, or just African. Their countries, one of their main waste management systems involves using black soldier flies, which is amazing. I love it. It's just hard to, I'm like, seems like I'm just pulling a whole networks of information into what I'm trying to do and make it work in the US.
Yeah, you've got to keep the kind of global networks open because, like you said, there's pockets here and there of strong BSF regions, countries, areas. I remember I spoke to a guy it's in Vancouver. It's kind of a million miles away from you, but it's North America. Stuart Lilly. I don't know if you've heard of him before. I spoke to him and he's doing something similar. I think it's with worms, but it's all about kind of food waste handling and circularity. But he has worked with black soldier flies previously, and he kind of taught me about this idea of just actual circularity rather than protein production. That would be a good person to reach out to. And I'm fascinated by your story and your development so far in the industry. So I'd absolutely keep in touch with you, and I think we need more of these connections globally to learn from each other. You've only been doing this for 1 year. You said you got your last mobile unit, your first one, sorry, a year ago. You've made some pretty good progress here. What are the plans for the future? How do you see this developing over the next year, 5 years, even 10 years?
With the amount of progress we've made, and we've showcased it well enough to where we were able to win a grant. That's a great model to pursue. It is very slow, so I anticipate the growth of what we're doing is going to be growing, like adding more mobile compost commands as the demand requires, right? As food waste collection increases, we're going to need to process more of our own food waste. We are looking into, because we got some, I think it's on the horizon that Washington D.C. is going to be really ramping up their food waste collection, which is what I'm waiting for, right? Like that's a huge opportunity for us to be a processor, so we can move away from the hauling side and just be strictly processing. So as the scale increases in the actual collection of food waste, we see our soldier fly composting system as a viable alternative to increase compost capacity in our region. As DC increases their residential collection, as they're likely going to be making like restaurants and hotels and anybody that generates food and food waste, they're going to probably make it mandatory for them to compost. So when that happens, we're just going to back away from the hauling side completely and just be a dedicated service provider of processing organics. So, whether that's growing the number of containers that we use or a more centralized approach where we do it in like a warehouse model. We're open to both. I don't, the warehouse is going to be super expensive, but if demand is there, then it'll be worth it. So right now we're just going to increase, we're going to keep scaling up our containers. We're going to keep building them out until we hit a tipping point of, okay, now we really need to centralize everything and we're going to be large scale.
It's funny, isn't it? Because, common business knowledge is is grow with demand, right? Grow your supply with demand. But the demand is the input, which is strange for you because you're getting paid
Exactly.
on the input, right? So
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
if the demand, aka the input, is there, then you put up your warehouse, and then any products that you make off the back of it, whether it's frass or black soldier fly derived products, then that's essentially pocket money, right? If the
Yeah.
payment and the
Yeah.
service is the input.
Exactly. Yep. And
And
it, from what I can tell, that model definitely mitigates some of the risk of finances at like running a company like this. So whether we're marketed as a black soldier fly producer, a composter, however we want to be put in the spotlight, like the actual, there's multiple revenue models that we can pursue, not just selling product at top dollar. So that's why I'm continuing, and that's why I think this is going to work.
awesome. In terms of financing, how have you done it? Is it literally the grant, or is there also previous business earnings that you've pumped into this? Or go on, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I've kept my full-time job up until June of last year. So I'm almost a year into not having a real job.
Congrats. That's a great
Thanks.
milestone.
Thank you. It's tough, man. So I put a lot of my own money into it. Friends and family. I think I started with a $50,000 investment, which helped build out the first unit, helped, supply everything and got us running more efficiently. Still in my full-time job, but our collection routes are to the point where it's feasible enough for me to really dive into this full time. So yeah, just small. Like we started with 50 grand. I'm very hesitant about large scale investment, like venture capital and things like that. Just
Why is that?
from what I've been seeing across the industry, I people who are interested in investing in uh, insect farming businesses, they're not gonna it's not gonna jive well with what we're doing, right? We're not focusing. We don't have a research and development department. We don't have these minute efficiency increases that is going to make for a top dollar product. In addition to
But you could argue, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here.
yeah,
The venture capitalist investment would give you a R&D department. It will give you salespeople to sell all of the products, right?
yeah, definitely, it definitely would. Definitely hesitant about like just giving up part of my business. Like I don't know what it's worth. It's not worth a lot right now, but the grand plan, it's going to be worth a lot in the future. I don't know how long. I don't know when it's going to be, how much it'll be. I just don't want to, offer equity, I guess, right now because it's just an unknown growth model.
You're very tight-lipped, Dave. But if I was to be a mind reader, I'm looking at your eyes and thinking you're thinking billions, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's as being one of the only ones in the U.S. doing what I'm doing. The challenges come with not having mentorship guided towards what I'm doing, or not having like a reliable model to pursue. It's not a tech business that, the more money you put in, the more output potential, or, we're not going to go in the stock market as a farming company. But I do see this being used in many different industries, including, waste management companies, like large waste management companies that want to add composting as a service, right? If they want, for a very small investment, these large established waste management companies could add composting, to their repertoire, and then also make their own products.
So we're potentially fast forwarding 5 years here, perhaps 10 years, when, you've built this process that works. And you're saying that you think it will be more waste management companies who might take an interest in this.
Yeah, I think my model for growth is the service itself.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
the value is in the service, and there's a lot of green initiatives in the country, and and a lot of environmental pursuits that I can, like, I think this would partner well with counties that don't even have composting yet, and they want to establish, okay, how do we start composting? This is a great first step, or very scalable step. So we anticipate partnering with neighboring counties, with other municipalities that are maybe having trouble with the amount of food waste they're collecting. Maybe they're collecting too much. So we see a local government approach. We see a private partner approach to scale. So yeah, a bunch of different avenues we can pursue. But
Is that
building out the process itself is the hard. I mean, that's what I'm doing. That's the impossible part right now. But once it's done, once it's established, that could be a franchisable model where we just set up shop in whatever location says yes.
it sounds like you've got like a you've got a plan in your mind, but you're not getting too carried away with it, and you're focusing on making it work in the kind of that micro scale to showcase the product market fit, I suppose is the
Exactly.
right term,
Yep.
which is what you're working on now. And it takes a long time to get to that point. And then when you do get to that point, it's all about kind of reaching other people, and or even them reaching you before you reach them, because they've heard about what you're doing and they want it in their county, and then you kind of expand more from that. And then, like you said, you franchise, and that's the point perhaps when you do go and get some sort of financing, whether it's debt, equity, whether it's franchise, and so the franchisees are the kind of the financiers, and that's how you then kind of expand into different cities or states or countries. I mean, like that. Who knows? There's no glass ceiling here, Dave. It with the right business model. It's yeah, that's fascinating, and it sounds so simple. The way you talk about it, it's so simple. Just getting those smaller details right in the examples. It's inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. It's tough, but thank you.
It is tough. It is tough. And, I have these same thoughts as well. Dave, it's been brilliant to speak to you. Before we go, if you could step back to a year ago, or perhaps offer tips for anyone who is going along a similar journey to you, what would it be if you haven't already said it?
I think the best advice I've gotten so far is if you're in my position, if you're smaller scale or looking to start, it really is just practice. You really need to get hands on, do it a lot of times in a small scale before a year in and I'm still doing one container and I'm still having problems. The earlier that you can figure out what is going to go wrong and not have it happen again, then the better off you'll be. But that only comes with practice. You can look up, you can research, you can pay for consultations, you can buy my container. I can sell you a container, and like, you can't just start right away. Like it's a biological process, and things are going to go wrong. But you having the hands-on dirty work experience is the most important part. Concept is great. SOPs are great. Something will go wrong eventually. And if you have the experience to, fix that before it gets worse or before it happens again, then that's where the true value comes in, because then you're gonna keep progressing without making the same mistakes. But that really does just come with, start with 5 trades, start with 50 pounds of food waste, and just get your larva rate, get your moisture control in your trays, do all that stuff very small, because as you scale, the problems do add up to a certain point, and the more you can mitigate those up front, the better off you'll.
That was the perfect note to finish on. Dave, thank you very much for coming on the Black Soldier Fly Leaders podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you're doing. I find it very valuable.
I am going to try something new today, something I've never done before, and I'm going to do a quick review of the episode, or my thoughts anyway, for everyone who is listening. So hopefully you haven't logged off and you're still going to listen to my thoughts. What I found really inspiring from this episode is the entrepreneurial spirit from Dave. His hustle, that gets a bad rep in today's age, the hustle culture, but he uses it in quite a calm demeanor, in that he is, he's in this truck driving, he's getting hands on, like he said, and really understanding the process, because that's, I think, what's needed. And if he is going to scale in the future, then he needs to know how it works. I really liked as well that Dave knew his limits, his limitations. He said, he's not a salesman. He's not doing breeding right now because it just doesn't make sense to, he knows that right now getting some expensive drying equipment isn't going to work for him commercially. So he he doesn't invest in it, and he knows what his scale is right now. And I suppose his advantage, his competitive advantage, is him getting in the truck and delivering all of those, or picking up some of the food waste. So he kind of knows, he's very aware of his situation right now, and knows that perhaps that is the next step up. It's centralizing the feeding operation, so then he can do less of the time on the road and spend more time actually perfecting the formula for his mobile, what are they called, composting commands. In terms of his personality, he was very curious. He wants to know the process, but he's also humble. But on the flip side of that, he showcased a lot of steel, a lot of confidence, and a huge amount of ambition, which is what you need. But bring him back to his humble roots of, right, let's make this work. And I think that there's a hell of a lot of learnings there. First of all, from my own experience, it can be a really difficult process, and so you've got to know how to do it. But not just the process, it's the kind of the ecosystem of how black soldier flies works in your area, in his case, DC and Virginia. And so finding that product market fit is so important. And he kind of, in his mind, he seems very clear in how he is going to achieve that. And then once he achieves that, then he'll get back to the drawing board and say, right, how are we going to expand, and how are we going to get this into different counties, because it works. And I got the impression that Dave is fighting tooth and nail to make this work, and that his motivation is because black soldier flies do work as a composting tool, as a service provider. He just needs to prove it, because not too many people know about it. The supply is uncertain, the demand is uncertain. So there's lots to do, but that driving motivation is there, and it's really inspiring to see. And so I hope all of you guys who have listened, whether you're big or small, but I guess mainly in this instance, smaller scale producers or farmers, can learn from Dave. Reach out to me, to Dave, if you want. We need to learn from each other and advance this industry forward, because it's the small scale people who are going to make it work. They're the ones who are going to grow into the bigger scale, and we need more of them, so that we can form cooperatives and we can build the industry from the ground up. That's all from me for this week. If you haven't already figured this out, I am posting episodes every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. That's the aim. So look out for them every 2 weeks on a Tuesday, as I'm sure you are already, and you can't get enough of them. But thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in 2 weeks.